Okay, today I have got another classic science fiction from one of my favourite all-time authors, Roger Zelazny. This is Damnation Alley. Damnation Alley. Okay, I think it's a perfect example of classic science fiction. It doesn't hurt that for me personally, everything Roger Zelazny ever wrote is like crack. But without that strong basis of mine, I still think it's a pretty spectacular book. When you consider the publishing year was 1969, that was the year the first Boeing 747 launched. It was long before dystopian was a word, and post-apocalyptic, while it existed, wasn't a genre. So it came out as in novel form, to most deservedly, in my opinion, win the Hugo and Nebula Awards. It's almost a prototype of its genre. I still think that it's very well written, immensely readable, and it's definitely an exciting forerunner of a genre that has just grown in popularity since then. Worth mentioning that Zelazny did not share my opinion about it. So Barry N. Malzberg, at the time it was published, thought that made an interesting novella, but an unfortunate novel. He thought it was mechanical, simply transposed action-adventure story written, in his view, at the bottom of Zelazny's talent, and Zelazny himself agreed with Malzberg, stating that he preferred the novella and only expanded it at his agent's request to make it a more viable for a movie deal. And a movie deal did in fact follow. I personally haven't seen it, but in 1977, a movie that was loosely based, apparently very loosely based on the novel, was directed by someone called Jack Smite, who I've never heard of. Zelazny had liked an original script that was produced by one Lucas Heller, and which was more faithful to the book itself. He expected that to be the filmed version. He didn't realise until he saw in the theatre that the shooting script written by someone else was vastly different. I'm not sure that I've ever seen his reaction to that discovery, but I gather that most people don't think the film was very good, and they certainly don't think it compared well to the novel. Okay, so it is based on the North American continent, where humanity have royally messed up. Large portions of the continent are radioactive wasteland, where mutated life forms and hazardous weather patterns vie for the title of most hazardous. There are remnant populations of people separated on the east and west coast, where some vestiges of civilization exist. But they are separated by Damnation Alley, which is 3,000 miles of danger that few men have ever dared cross. And of course, no women have ever dared cross it, because it is 1969 after all. Now, written in, that is. Now, the shredded population of Boston has been devastated by plague, and there is a vaccine, but they don't have any on their coast. California has the vaccine, but very little chance of getting it through. Their one single slim choice is our hero, Hal Tanner. What a name, hey? If nothing else dates this novel, Hal Tanner dates it. He's the last surviving remnant of a heavily illegal gang, the Hells Angels, and he's possibly the best driver alive, which might be what's needed to survive Damnation Alley, and it is Boston's only chance of survival if he can bring the vaccine through. At the beginning of the novel, he's incarcerated, and he's offered the option of going free if he does this thing. I think there's several police states throughout, and a nuclear war was what caused the devastation. The storms are known as garbage storms, which I personally think is really cute, and you've got a whole number of mutated animals and insects to make the journey treacherous. Refreshing, isn't it? So in a lot of ways, it has dated really, really badly. You've got people smoking cigarettes everywhere, which would never be allowed in this day and age. Hal Tanner himself is not a nice guy. He is a almost prototypical, if that's a word, anti-hero. He's certainly not a hero. He's probably not even a modern anti-hero, since modern anti-heroes are often not allowed to be bad people in themselves. He is a bad person, and there's no getting around it. He doesn't pretend to be anything else. He's unabashedly bad. He is also beautifully written. And I think he's beautifully written and very true to himself. I can see why Malzberg would have found him a very emotionally stunted character. He is. And an almost wooden character. He certainly is portrayed that way, but I don't think it's bad for the story. And I don't see that as being a flaw in the writing, the way apparently Malzberg and Zelazny did. So you don't get any emotional landscape from him or inner musings or all of that, but you do get a fascinating adventure as he struggles his way mile by mile across this messed up continent. The messed up continent is the most fun messed up continent you can imagine. You want strong women characters who are the leaders. They know they can be. Not the book for you. There is actually a woman in it. I wouldn't go so far as to say a woman character. She's more of a woman stereotype. I think that absence would be a big no-no for a lot of modern readers. But the way in which the woman is in the novel is suitable to the era it was written, and it's consistent with the story itself. So 157 pages written of classic science fiction described at the time as gripping. I agree. If you like classic sci-fi of this era and genre, it is gripping and it's a lot of fun. I do recommend for people who like this genre and this style of writing. I do not necessarily recommend it to people who have high political correctness value judgments on books, and you would have to be able to read it in the historical era in which it was written, rather than through a modern reader's eyes. Anyway, end of this. Good book, Roger Zelazny. Omnivorous heart goes out to Roger Zelazny always.